Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of 8 college students who went on a mountain climbing trip that went terribly wrong. One of them went insane and the other one went missing. But what really happened here, and what are the rest of them hiding? All the clues are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these 8 college students decided to climb the tallest mountain in their area, but the weather took an unexpected turn for the worse and they ended up stranded there for 2 weeks, unable to come back down. After 2 weeks, a rescue team found them, but there were only 7 of them left. The 8th climber was missing, and the 7th climber had gone completely insane and had to be put in a mental hospital. The remaining 6 climbers made a full recovery, and when the police began questioning them, all their answers were the same. They say the 8th climber went to find help and never came back. Then the police went to the mental hospital to talk to the 7th climber, just to see if he knew something that the rest of them didn't. But when they tried to talk to him, all he did was bang his head on the wall and repeat, 8888. What happened to the missing 8th climber? And what drove the 7th climber to insanity? This is why I don't tell anyone where I live. There was once a boy who asked his single father for a bedtime story, so the father told him. There was once a boy named Colby who made friends with another boy online called Helper23. On Colby's birthday, Helper23 wanted to give him a present in real life, so Colby gave him his home address, where he lives with his mom, his dad, and his little brother. But then Colby started to feel a bit weird about giving his address to a stranger online. The next night, he thought he had to tell his parents about it. He called out to his dad but got no reply, then found both his parents killed and a man wearing a dark hoodie holding a knife in the hallway. As Colby started to beg for his life, he hears his little brother crying in the next room. The intruder then strangles Colby and leaves the house with Colby's baby brother. The boy then looks up at his father and asks, "Why did the intruder take the baby?" To which his father just calmly smiled and said, "I've always wanted to be a father." This is why you should never talk to strangers. According to Japanese legend, Kuchisake Onna was once a beautiful woman who cheated on her husband. When her husband found out about it, he became full of rage and sliced the corners of her mouth from ear to ear. After she died, she came back as a vengeful spirit who covers her scars with a surgical mask, so she looks entirely normal otherwise. She usually wanders the streets at night with a large pair of scissors or a knife. If you're unlucky enough to be chosen as her victim, she will ask you, "Am I pretty?" If you answer no, she will cut you in half. If you say yes, she will cut your mouth from ear to ear just like her too. But you can survive her by answering her question with something else, like, maybe, I don't know, am I pretty? You can also buy some time by throwing money or hard candies at her, which she will stop to pick up. But others say that if she's chosen you, she will show up to your bedroom and kill you in your sleep. So remember, especially since everyone is wearing a mask nowadays, be careful who you talk to. Can you imagine being locked inside your house for your whole life? Caroline's aunt and uncle said she was so ugly that she had to be hidden from the world. If anyone saw her, she'd be taken to the church and burned at the stake. But things are not as they seem. One day, Caroline started asking questions. She wanted to know why the other kids could play outside, but she could only sit and look out from her bedroom window. This made her aunt and uncle very angry. They said, "Can't you see yourself? Don't you understand the sacrifices we've had to make to keep you hidden from the world?" She had been convinced that staying trapped was for her own good, but one day she decided to escape. She used the safety pin to unlock the door and left. However, soon after she made it out, 2 men wearing uniforms started shouting at her. She began running. When she turned a corner, she saw a group of people who pointed at her and screamed, "Monster." Eventually, a priest came and said, "Take her to the church." They dragged Caroline to the church, put her on an altar, and set her on fire. As the fire grew, the priest turned to the crowd and said, "Look at this monster. Look at her hands, only 5 fingers. Look at her face, only 2 eyes, and her teeth a sickening white." Have you ever felt like you're being watched by someone or something while being entirely alone? Once there was a hunter who was in the middle of the woods. After a long day of hunting, he lost his bearings, so he just decided to go one direction until he could find a way out. After a few hours, he found a small cabin. Having no other choice as it was getting really dark, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. The door was open, no one was inside. He went on the bed and just decided he would apologize and explain himself to the owner of the cabin in the morning. But as he tried to go to sleep, he saw the entire cabin was decorated with portraits, all painted in extreme detail. Their faces weren't normal. They were all twisted, angry, and hateful. These disturbing paintings made him really uncomfortable, but he just tried to ignore them as much as he could and went to sleep. As he woke up the next morning, he got up from the bed and realized that there are no portraits on the walls of the cabin at all. Instead, they were windows. This is why you should never answer the door late at night. A woman woke up to a knock at her door. When she opened the door, no one was there, so she went back to bed. A few hours later, she woke up again to a loud noise. She looked to her window and saw the word smile written in the frost. She reached over to call 911, but saw that a post-it note was stuck on her phone and it said, "I told you to smile." She ran out of the house, called the police, but nothing was found. The next night, she decided to put a camera in her room. But she could have never predicted what those cameras would show her. At 3 a.m., something crawled out from underneath her bed. It was a tall, pale man with no clothes and bulging veins all over his head. He walked over to the camera until his face took up the entire shot. Then his mouth widened into an unnaturally large smile. He just stared at the camera like that for hours, not blinking. The woman skipped the video until she saw herself getting out of bed and picking up the camera. And that was the last thing the cameras recorded, which meant the man never left her house. Have you let anyone borrow your phone before? One woman let her son borrow her phone, but she could have never expected the terrifying things she saw after she got her phone back. So this woman got her new phone and she put it on the kitchen counter and went to watch some TV. That's when her son came in and asked if he could borrow the phone to play with it. The woman didn't think much of it at first, so she agreed, but she could have never known that this would lead to a terrifying discovery. When it was nighttime, she got ready to tuck her son into bed, so she went upstairs to his room, but he wasn't there. Then she ran over to her room and saw him sleeping on her bed with the new phone in his hand. She felt relieved, so she took her phone back and started looking through it. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. She saw her background had changed, but it wasn't until she saw the photos that she found the horrifying surprise. There were many new photos on her phone that her son took around the house. The front door, the kitchen, and even photos of her taken from the back when she was watching TV. She started deleting these photos until the last one caught her eye. Instantly, she turned around, terrified. It was a photo of her son sleeping in her bed, but it was taken by someone else, someone standing above him, and on the edge of the photo was half of a stranger's. This is why you should never get in a hot tub at night. A couple was staying at a beach resort for their honeymoon, and on the last night they decided to go to the outdoor hot tub to watch the stars. Before they went on this trip, they decided they would bring no laptops, tablets, or cameras. Only their phones for emergencies, which they also left inside their suitcases. Still, after a while, the woman found the scenery so beautiful that she said, "I wish I could get a picture of us so I can post it on Facebook." She wanted to go back inside the room to get her phone, but her husband encouraged her to just live in the moment. They stayed out there for a while until the jets went off and they went back into their rooms and just went to sleep. The next morning, the man noticed something under their door. He thought it was just a bill for their room, but it wasn't until the woman saw the look on his face that she realized something was wrong. He was holding a Polaroid picture of them from the night before. On the white part in the bottom were the words, "Here you go." It was taken from inside the room. Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of an old man who heard about how a scientist discovered a way to stay young forever, but things went terribly wrong. The scientist is hiding something, and all the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So this old man went to the scientist and asked him to make him young again. The scientist agreed and said that he invented a machine that would use the old man's cells to create a young, healthy body. Then the old man's memories would be transplanted into the new body and he would be young again. The old man thought this was great news and agreed instantly. But things weren't so simple. The old man laid down on the bed to get ready for the procedure. A few hours later, he asked, "When will it begin?" Then a young man walked into the room and said to the scientist, "My procedure went so well, but what are you gonna do with my old body?" The scientist replied to him, "It will be disposed of in the incineration facility." The old man was so impressed. He said, "Wow, the person before me seemed to have amazing results. I can't wait for my turn. What really happened here, and what was the scientist hiding? Can you solve?" This is why you should listen to your roommate. Once there were two girls, Mary and Jane, who were best friends and roommates in college. They both had a huge exam coming up, but Mary got a text from her crush asking her to go to a party with him. Mary asked Jane to come with her, but she said that she couldn't because she wanted to study for the exam instead. Mary tried to convince Jane by saying she could just wake up early and study then, but Jane insisted on studying late at night, so Mary went alone. When Mary was at the party, she met up with some other friends who convinced her to stay at their place for the night. She agreed, but said that she had to go back to her room really quickly to get the keys that she forgot. Luckily, when Mary came back, the door was already slightly open. So she snuck in, grabbed her keys, and left the light off, not wanting to wake Jane. The next morning, Mary finally came back home. When she opened the door, she found Jane dead at her desk. Written on the wall in Jane's blood were the words, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" This is why you should always check under your bed. Once a young woman on a phone call with her boyfriend went to get her mail at the lobby of her apartment, then went back into her apartment to go to bed. She laid on her bed and started looking through her mail when her phone fell, so she reached down to try and pick it up. She reached her arm out to grab her phone, then noticed a man lying underneath her bed, curled up with his back towards her. She doesn't react, tells her boyfriend over the phone she's going to shower, then hangs up. Then she runs into her bathroom, turns on the shower, locks the door, and jumps out of the first floor window. Once she ran across the street, she calls the police. The police arrives pretty quickly, goes into her house, and comes out with a deranged-looking man in handcuffs. One of the police officers then walks towards her, clearly shocked and horrified by what he just found out, and said, "We found him standing outside of your bathroom holding a knife. He was waiting for you."